With the Biden presidency rolling out its key policies, how will this affect US Philippine relations? Let's get the insights of international relations professor Renato de Castro. Professor, thank you so much for joining us on the program. Let's take a look first at how the Biden presidency will affect Filipino immigrants and Filipinos here who want to study and work in the US. Do you think it will benefit them under Biden's immigration policies?
Well, those Filipinos who are interested, yes, who want to become Americans, want to have their green card, I think you'll have a more open approach. You know, Biden would live up to what you call the American ideals, that this country, the United States, is a country created by immigrants, in total contrast to Donald Trump. So for, you know, the number of Filipinos who are interested in staying there, that's great. For Filipinos who are thinking of studying and just study and come back, well, that's no problem. But of course, again, this is an issue that pertains to Filipinos who would like to leave their country. I don't think this should be the general concern of the Filipino body politic. Because anyway, majorities of the Filipinos will stay here in our country.
In terms of...
So this is my view, no, regarding this matter. Especially for Filipino health workers who want to work. That's great. This will be a great... this will be something great for Filipinos.
In terms of the political spectrum, Professor, no? How do you think will President Biden approach this visiting forces agreement with President Duterte?
Okay.
Do you think it will be extended?
We go to this very delicate issue regarding the alliance. So before we tackle this, let's look at what happened to the alliance since 2016 up to, of course, 2020, you know, the Trump administration. If you go back to 2016, we have, of course, the president or administration who has a very cavalier, very cynical view of the alliance. In fact, I don't know if you remember, in October 2016, after, of course, you have this disastrous interaction between him and outgoing Barack Obama, he was really bent on abrogating the alliance, but it was saved because the armed forces of the Philippines stepped in. Then, of course, he had the call from former President Donald Trump in December 2016, who basically engaged him in a very personal relationship. Then they met again the following year. So this alliance actually became a matter of, using the term of former President Donald Trump, this is transactional. This is primarily transactional between two populist leaders, Donald Trump and, of course, President Duterte. So that was basically, that's in a way, that saved the alliance. But it's really very transactional. Now, what will happen? Of course, what will happen now is you'll have a shift. The Biden administration would look at the alliance as an alliance between two countries that share a common security concern. That is, of course, China. And of course, this is the element. Every time you talk about American alliance, especially coming from the Democrats, we should also share common values. Common values of respect to human rights, respect to the rule of law. Then, of course, another element there, which was emphasized by the incoming Biden administration in the light of what happened on June 6th.
Yes. So,
democratization, to defend democracy. Democracy is fragile in the United States. Democracy is fragile elsewhere. So as the beacon of democracy, the United States would ensure that, you know, this will be an agenda of the Biden administration.
So,
of course,
Professor,
this will complicate a lot of aspects of our relationship with the United States.
Okay, so the situation on the visiting forces agreement is still very fluid, and we'll have to wait and see what would be the next steps of the Biden administration. But
yes,
on the flip
because
side,
this is not anymore the Trump administration who would look at it as transactional.
Yes. So
now, this
what
is
would it
important
take?
to us.
What would it take then, Professor, for the Biden administration to win over President Duterte, who is very close to the Chinese? Are we likely to see President Biden expediting the distribution of US-made vaccines to the Philippines to basically offset the aggressive donations of Beijing?
I don't think so, because they would look at it as a blackmail. Using the vaccine diplomacy, putting the United States in a very disadvantageous position. Well, you have to take into account there's also a shortage of vaccine in the States. They realize, of course, looking at the potential of America for industrial production, that will probably be resolved in a matter of months. You'll have probably overproduction of vaccine. But, just look at how our president tried to leverage on this. No vaccine, no visiting force agreement. That goes to the very grain of what we call an alliance. You don't put your, the other side in a very disadvantageous position. You don't basically blackmail your ally, threatening him just because he will not provide this. You form an alliance because you share common security concerns. And of course, the other issue there is, how do we both look at China? So, of course, we have a president who simply think that China will never do anything wrong, even in terms of the vaccine, right? He preferred the Chinese vaccine, despite the fact that it has only, based on the studies, 50% effectivity. But of course, look at what the government has done, purchased how many million dosage of this vaccine. So again, this will raise an issue. So as two allies, how do we look at China in particular? How do we calculate China's maritime expansion in the South China Sea?
And of course, another issue that could put both leaders at loggerheads is human rights, because the Democrats are known to be more forceful in human rights than the Republicans, which could put a potential strain, even before it begins, a closer relationship between Biden and Duterte.
Yes, that's already been emphasized by the incoming Secretary of State, Anthony Blinken. Human rights is very important. It's a value that has, of course, been sidelined by the Trump administration, but will be emphasized by the Biden administration. So, of course, this is just like waving the red flag to a raging bull. Look at how this government, this administration, reacts every time the human rights issue has been raised. By the European Union. Remember how we reacted to a number of EU countries when they voted for the investigation of Philippine human rights violation in Geneva, imposing sanction on countries like Australia, Spain, so forth and so on. Now, during that time, he was able to divide the EU against the United States, because the United States was under the Trump administration. Not anymore.
So, Professor, we have 30 seconds till the end of our interview. If you were to advise President Biden, what would be the 3 points that you would tell him on how to engage President Duterte?
Number one, is the alliance important to you? Of course, the essence of the alliance now is this is a sort of a deterrence against China's maritime expansion. Number two, visiting force agreement. How do you view the visiting force agreement? You just don't abrogate the visiting force agreement just because the visa of one of your close friend got canceled. The alliance is more deeper. It's deeper than that. It's shared values, shared security concern.
And the
final
final
point
one
is, how about the implementation of EDCA? Your country signed EDCA, yet it's not being implemented. So are you an ally, a real ally, or you just think this is a matter of a transactional relationship?
Thank you so much for your insights on RP-US relations under a Biden presidency. Professor Renato de Castro, an international relations expert from De La Salle University.